Do you ever look back at the leading men of the 70s? And like I was watching Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, two biggest stars in the world, Redford and Newman. You watch any of these guys, and in back to the Cary Grant, so nobody was particularly fit. They were lean, but nobody. You guys started it. You started it. You started that whole thing. I mean, now you can't be in a Marvel movie unless you're ginormous.
Well, there were some guys that were really in good shape, but not very muscular. But I mean, Charlton Heston was always in good shape. Yul Brynner was always in good shape.
And what's his name?
Charles Bronson.
Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas was in great shape.
Right? Yeah,
When I worked with Kirk Douglas in the movie The Villain with Anne Margaret and Kirk Douglas, he invited me over to his hotel room. His room was kind of like two floors down from my hotel room. And he says, I want you to show me exactly how to do it the right way. I said, to do what the right way? And he bends down and he rolls out from underneath the bed dumbbells. Son of a bitch had dumbbells under his bed. He rolls them out and he starts curling. He says, you wrote on one of the articles that you're turning the wrist when you curl, that this has more effect on the bicep. He was having biceps. And he was trying to do the curl the right way. It was like fantastic to talk bodybuilding talk with Kirk Douglas. And he was as kind of kind as I was about giving him tips about bodybuilding and giving me tips about acting. So when I was doing the scenes with him and stuff like that, he would always come over and says, I would just pronounce this more, slow down a little bit here and all that, because I was new. Right. It was the kind of my second or third movie that I've done was with Kirk Douglas. Jeez. Right away with a big star like that I admired when I was like a kid growing up, right? So, I mean, it was like really amazing. But anyway, I had a wonderful working relationship with him. We became very good friends but he was in shape. So there were several guys like that. Clint was always working out. But what happened, what was different then was that those guys were working out secretly. Because I remember Clint saying to me, he says, I have the Universal Machine. And, Harold Zinken, who created the Universal Machines, he gave me the machines and I have it in my house. And so no one knows that I'm working out. I said, is this a secret? Nah, he says, it's always better when you say, I was born like that.
Really?
Yeah. So that's what that's Robert Mitchum, all those guys that they wanted to look like they were born like that. They had this perfect V-shaped body. And only then when Pumping Iron became a huge smash and this international phenomenon and became kind of like the number one documentary in the 70s, only when that kind of made bodybuilding explode and all of a sudden, bodybuilding became fashionable. Only then, those guys all started working out officially. And all of a sudden you saw...
Why was there a stigma, do you think?
There was not, it was just, I think, times change, that today people want to know that a star works out. They want to know what exercises The Rock does. They want to know how many times I go to the gym, how many times do I work out, what does my workout look like, and all this kind of. They want to know the details, how does Sly get ready for a movie, and all of this. So, they get fascinated by that. And so it became kind of very fashionable that you had to look visually like a hero. So muscles were required. That's when then there was the explosion in the 80s of people like Stallone, myself, Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren. All of those guys all of a sudden became big stars and were leading men in the movies. The funny thing about it is that in the 70s, when I said I wanted to get into movies, all the producers and directors and studio executives and agents was saying to me, it's never going to happen. And one of the three reasons was that my body was too big. They said to me, says, look at the stars today.
De Niro.
There's Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, De Niro, Woody Allen. Those are the sex symbols. People don't want to see big muscles. You're 100 pounds too heavy. Forget it. And sure enough, 5 years later, all of the things that they said, those naysayers that I never paid attention to, which is one of the rules in my book, Be Useful, is never pay attention to the naysayers. Don't listen to them, because they always would say it's impossible. And I believe what Nelson Mandela said, that everything is always impossible until someone does it. So it doesn't mean that someone didn't do it before me, even though there were Hercules movies, there were muscle movies, but they felt kind of those movies are out and they will never come back. And sure enough, they didn't expect that Pumping Iron would be such a big smash, and that a guy like Bob Rafelson would do a movie called Stay Hungry with a leading man being a bodybuilder.
I think that's the most important movie in many ways of your career. It's the forgotten movie in that you have Terminator, you have all these ginormous cultural moments, but Stay Hungry really was the one that made you a legitimate actor.
Yeah, exactly, because it was one of those movies where people said, well, I guess you can do a movie with someone that is that muscular. Yes, I had to trim down. Yes, I had to lose weight, but I didn't have to go down to 150 pounds like Robert De Niro was.
Right.
I went down to 210 pounds, and still was muscular, so because it was a competitive bodybuilder that I played. And then with that doubling up with Pumping Iron, and then Streets of San Francisco, where I played a bodybuilder. And then in The Villain with Kirk Douglas, I played the handsome stranger.
Always a good line.
The handsome stranger with the powder blue outfit, Western outfit and all that stuff. But then after that was Conan the Barbarian. Oh yeah. Now then I did the Jane Mansfield story where I played Mickey Haggerty. So they dusted that script off and they said, wait a minute, Schnitzel is around, he has muscles. We can have him play Mickey Haggerty, because Mickey Haggerty was Mr. Universe.
Yeah,
he was this Hungarian bodybuilder, so he had an accent, so I was perfect for that. So the bottom line is that when they said, it's not going to work, you getting into movies, and especially not being a leading man, they said it was because of your accent. They said that the German accent is scary for most Americans. It reminds them of the Nazis, and so yes, you could play a Nazi officer or something like that. That would be fine. But other than that, you would not get away with it. And then they said the body was too big, and then they said that no one would be able to pronounce Schwarzen, what's his name, Schnitzel or something like that. So yeah, they were laughing at my name, and they said, "There's the three things why it would not work." And then sure enough, I come out with Conan the Barbarian, and John Milius, the director, famous director, right?
An amazing writer. Both.
Yeah, the amazing writer. So he said to the press, if we wouldn't have had Schwarzenegger, we would have had to build one. So now he establishes, if I wouldn't have had that body, he couldn't have done the movie, and he would have never been able to direct a movie like that. So think about that. So then I come out with Terminator, literally like 2.5 years later, I come out with Terminator, and Jim Cameron says, what really made this work is that Schwarzenegger talked like a machine. I don't know if it was a compliment or not, but I mean, he made it sound like a compliment because he said to me, if he wouldn't have, that's what made the machine totally believable, because he did not only just look different with his enormous body and with the way he walked and acted, but he talked like a machine.
100. Listen, I remember.
He says, so that's what really made it. So now I said to myself, here's a second one now that they said would never work because of my accent. And now this is a big plus for Terminator, one of the most historic characters.
I remember seeing Terminator in the theater I went and saw it with all the guys from the Brat Pack. We were shooting St. Elmo's Fire, and it came out, and we all went, all the boys. It was Judd Nelson, Andrew McCarthy, and Emilio Estevez and I. We went and saw Terminator on a Friday night, and then it came back on a Saturday night. And it's when you say, I'll be back. And with anybody else saying that line, anybody else, it's the accent makes it.
Right.
Jim's right. It isn't the line. Line's great. Line's perfectly fine. It's the.
That's
you saying it.
And then it didn't take much longer than that. In the 80s, all of a sudden articles started coming out how actors in Hollywood are not anymore changing their names.
Oh, interesting.
Because they figured out that a name that is hard to pronounce and hard to remember is also hard to forget. So that was the new idea. All of a sudden, Gina Lollobrigida, the actress, well, that didn't change her name. Right? So all of a sudden, the more complicated names became in, and they mentioned, as a matter of fact, my name as an example, and it says, no one tells Schwarzenegger anymore to change his name. It just says, exactly what my vision was, is to have the posters say on top, Schwarzenegger, and then the title below. Schwarzenegger, Terminator. Schwarzenegger, Predator. Schwarzenegger, Kindergarten Cop. And this is how it went. Exactly the way it went. But again, it goes back to one thing, and that is, don't listen to naysayers and be in America. Because here, those things are possible.